So what is the fear of becoming obsolete, or FOBO for short, and what can you do to become future ready? Well, it stems from the fact that technology has exploded in the last few years, especially with artificial intelligence, blockchain. We're seeing countless apps come out, and sometimes, as I've experienced, it's a bit hard to keep up. So this threat of skill obsolescence, pushes us to constantly need to upskill and even reskill in our jobs. The fact is that artificial intelligence is getting a lot cheaper to use and train on. So as those training costs come down, the pace of disruption is going up. Basically, people will fear, as this pace of disruption goes up, that they will be left in the dust. And that's what it comes down to, unfortunately. So new tech is reshaping fields, whether we like it or not. You just have to look at media design and marketing, where social media apps and graphic design tools like Canva are quite user-friendly, enabling people to do the work themselves without outsourcing it at a great cost to professionals. Finance, law and accounting, well, there's a lot of expertise that humans have, and they're now starting to use AI to supplement the research and leverage that to come up with the best solutions for their clients. In manufacturing, well, that's a big one because a lot of repetitive tasks are being automated by robotic processes, leveraging AI. And of course, the biggie, technology and digital industries, which on its own is emerging at a rapid pace, exponentially. So if you happen to be a software engineer or an analyst of some sort, you will absolutely have to upskill or reskill very quickly, because your skills will be obsolete in a short amount of time. So employees feel that pressure to upskill all the time. They're feeling it a lot more now. And as a result, this great fear of job loss or career stagnation results. You've got to also consider those that are in industries where this technological change does require people to upskill, but there are some people that just are not willing to do it. And that could be for a number of factors. It could be the fear of technology itself. It could be lack of confidence that has been instilled in them for whatever reason. And they could start feeling left behind. In fact, I've been involved in the training industry for a while and training professionals on all sorts of future skills and analysis skills. And I've seen people actually starting to leave the industry because, especially with the advent of the pandemic, we all had to get on to, we all had to become very proficient with using virtual communication tools. And this was a bit too much for some people because they didn't want to facilitate a class where they could just see squares of people rather than actually talking to them face to face. And I get that, and I get why people would expect that in the facilitation or learning experience. But you do have to change with the times, and as a result of that, I know some people that have retired early because they just can't stand the thought of doing that. So in effect, if you don't upskill in a number of areas in your industry, or think about changing industries if that's becoming obsolete, then you will lose your competitive edge, and that's just the cold hard facts of it. It is a rapidly evolving job market, so why I'm here today talking to you is to tell you about what approaches you can take to overcome this fear of becoming obsolete and take action to either enhance your skills in your current career or think of pivoting to another one and leveraging your talents and strengths. So what can you do to overcome this fear of becoming obsolete? Well, there's several tactics I'd like to talk to you about. And when I say you, I mean everybody. I'm talking about people currently working, not working and want to get back in the workforce, students, whether you're of high school age, whether you're an undergraduate or postgraduate, university or tertiary student, and whether you're a career changer of any age, okay? And particularly those people later on in the second half of their careers, maybe in their 40s, 50s, and even 60s, that want to actually think about either pivoting to something else to take advantage of their skills and what they're good at, and upskill and reskill in certain areas that they feel that they would be suited, okay? So, number one, embrace continuous learning and develop a growth mindset. You remember before I said that I knew people in the training industry, in the facilitation industry, that left because they couldn't stand the thought of facilitating online facilitation sessions. Well, that's what this is about. Upskill, learn, actively seek upskilling for your entire career, not just a one-off, okay? So we live in an age now where things are evolving so rapidly with technology and ways of working that it should be a lifelong venture, okay? So stay updated on industry trends and emerging technologies relevant to your field, or if you're interested, look in other fields that you feel that you might be good at. So we're talking about things like learning program languages, if you're so technically inclined. I personally have never learnt a programming language. I'm from a business analysis background, operational and business analysis background. So it was more of a business-facing role, but I worked with programmers. It's about learning things like AI tools, apps, some technology that will enable you to do your job quicker, like ChatGPT or large language models as they're known. So another example is in manufacturing, where you can avoid obsolescence by perhaps reskilling in the roles that involve the operation, maintaining and programming of automated systems, where the automation of those repeatable processes has happened. If you're in professional services like finance, law and accounting, look at developing your skills in large language models like ChatGPT, as I mentioned before, data analysis, visualization of data, and all sorts of social media and AI content generation. So the point is, stay updated on emerging technology overall, okay? So if you do that now, and if you do that continuously through your career, you never know what will come up that will give you the opportunity to pivot to either another role or another industry, okay? And if you happen to be working with an organization, they often help with that culture of continuous learning by providing that training and reimbursing the fees for any courses that you do, encouraging you to go to conferences and events in your industry to network with professionals. So put your hand up for these things if you get the opportunity. So the second thing you can do is identify your skill gaps. Now, what I mean by skill gaps is the difference between the skills you have currently and the skills you need to do a particular role or be in a particular industry, okay? So what you want to do is sit down and list out those things in this skills inventory, like your qualifications, your experience, your areas of expertise, the tasks that you have done in your job that are of note, projects you've worked on, and be honest in what your strengths and weaknesses are, okay, and areas of improvement, okay? So what this will highlight is the things you need to prioritize when you're actually looking at where you want to move or what roles you want to move into. It's not just a self-assessment that's important. You need to seek feedback from other people, okay? Mainly to get the blind spots that you don't see yourself, okay? So when I say other people, I mean mentors, if you're lucky enough to have one. A mentor being someone that generally works in your industry. They're of a more senior status, more experience, and they can sort of help you along and guide you on career paths because they're good at looking at what your talents are and what things you can improve on. Colleagues, both past and present, okay? So this is important because these people have seen your behaviors, they've seen you at work, hit the ground, and they know what you can improve on. They know your habits, they know your moods, okay? Industry professionals I say because a lot of people whether it's in a union or whether it's in some sort of community of practice, they meet up with other professionals in their industry to share knowledge. And, a lot of people are involved in doing that by, having discussions about what they've been doing. So there are certain things that you might tell other industry professionals, so a particular automation project you work on, and people will pick up on that. So another thing you can do to identify skill gaps are benchmark your skills against job descriptions. Okay, so these are the job descriptions of those particular roles you want to go for. Okay, whether it's your same role or whether it's going into another role, either in your industry or a new industry. Okay, so you're benchmarking your current skills against the industry trends and demands, and what better place than to look at a job posting, say in LinkedIn or another job site in your local area or country. You can also look at industry reports for those particular industries you're interested in, and professional associations, for instance, unions or other associations. I'll give you one example of one that I'm in. It's the IAF, it's the International Association of Facilitators, the Australian chapter. So I can actually collaborate and network with other facilitators in many different areas and share tips and tools and techniques and things like that. So every industry will have that. So that is a fantastic way of actually looking at what you've got, looking at what you need by having a look at the requirements for the roles and then defining what that gap is that you have, which gives you some focus for upskilling. Another thing you can do to identify your skill gaps is look at what transferable skills you have. So what I mean by transferable skills are those skills that you might have that will enable you to move to another role quite easily, or even move to another industry quite easily. I'll give you a personal example. I was a business analyst for many years, working in the financial services and banking industry here in Australia. I became a business analyst through that industry, so I learnt all the tools and techniques of that role in that industry. But I knew that the role was transferable to other industries like logistics and government, design, whatever. So I was actually to start contracting in other industries because I had those transferable skills like requirements engineering and facilitation and strategic alignment and things like that. So they're the sorts of things I'm talking about. It could be soft skills like I've already mentioned facilitation, but it could be other soft skills like people management. That's a big one that a lot of people have. It's not to say that you need that as a transferable skill to do the role you're in. You might not, because you might work autonomously. But that's just another example of a skill that will be transferable to both jobs and other industries. Okay? It enables you to pivot to other things. So you're going in with your base transferable skills, i.e. business analysis or leadership skills, and it enables you to learn those top-up skills in that role and have them as a focus for what you need to develop. Okay, so that's very important. So the whole takeaway with the second point of identifying your skill gaps is try to target what you're good at. I think a lot of people, especially in the second half of their career, have worked out what they're good at. I certainly worked out what I was better at after the age of 40, I think, just by actually hitting the ground and doing the roles that I was in. So identify what you're good at, what you're interested in. Yeah, I think that's pretty important because you've got to do a role that you're at least partly interested in, because that will give you the momentum to want to learn and want to do well, rather than just turning up to get a paycheck. Okay, and also look at what's in demand, and look at the intersection of those three. Okay, so in terms of what's in demand, look at social media, follow content creators about the industry trends, talk to people, talk to colleagues, talk to people that you might know work in the industry that you're heading for. Okay, That would be the ideal situation. Not everybody can be in that intersection between those three things, but if you can, that's what you ultimately head for. Okay, the next thing you can do on the list is develop transferable skills, those things I just talked about. So this is building those skills that are applicable across different job roles and industries. Okay, so the first transferable skill we'll talk about is digital literacy. Now, what is digital literacy? It is information or data literacy, which is the search, the filter, the visualization, the management of data in digital systems. Media literacy is another one where we're critically analyzing and creating social media content and managing that content. Another one is digital and graphic design. As I mentioned, I use Canva as a graphic design tool, and I actually think it is a fantastic tool. I find it very user-friendly. Doesn't require much training to get started on it, and it's actually saving me from outsourcing to a professional. Okay, and it's quite sought after in the industry too. Then you've got technical literacy, which is in effect can be quite technical stuff, but doesn't necessarily have to be so technical. So the things I'm talking about are hardware and software skills, networks as opposed to human networking. Data storage and management, comms, web and multimedia technology, emerging technology such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, intelligent automation, etc., etc. Okay, so with tech literacy, it really depends on what level of technical ability and technical detail you want to go into. I myself worked as a business analyst for a number of years on projects. People assumed that was a technical role, but it's not. It's actually a business-facing role where I work with the business people who know the processes and what's in the data, and we sit down and work out what the future state needs to be based on the current state problems. Okay. So there are lots of roles around that sort of thing. Now, technical literacy will really depend on how technical you want to get, as I just mentioned. So when you're looking at things like artificial intelligence, are you looking at the use of large language models as a prompt engineer, which is all about, well, which is mostly about the use of language to be able to help you problem solve? Or are you actively looking at learning something like machine learning and programming and software engineering, okay, which is, it's a very, quite a bit more technical. So technical literacy is quite a wide net. Another area under the digital literacy banner is the digital product life cycle and management of that. So what that is the intersection of strategy, design and technology to help change manage a project from beginning to end. Okay, in effect, that's my background, and it's also bringing in those skills of understanding what the customer needs, you know, coming up with the digital products like apps. They could be retail apps, they could be financial apps, and the software that will enable customers to perform their functions or do what they need to do. Okay, on the back of that comes the skills around iterative development and agile, which you may have heard of, which is basically the that's the basis of innovation. Okay, talking about innovation, learning innovation skills is the next thing, which is an important series of transferable skills. Things like creativity, critical thinking, complex problem solving, collaboration, working with other people, relationship building, and teamwork. Okay? When you're working in a project, you need to work with other people. You need to work with other departments. Okay? So it's not just your department or you working on your own. You're in a situation where you're having to sometimes modify your behaviors and share your information. So this is all important stuff when you're talking about project work and innovation in particular. Innovation's all about pushing that envelope a little bit more and doing something that hasn't been done before. So it's often about sharing ideas and not criticizing other people's ideas if they seem a bit wild, because actually there might be something in that. So that's something that you need to work on, those collaboration and teamwork skills. Communication skills are important for the same reasons, because we do work with other people as a combined effort to come up with something that may disrupt an industry potentially. And facilitation skills, that's very important. I'm a facilitator, both an educational facilitator and a problem-solving facilitator. I've done this role right through my career as a business analyst, but I found that that's been a fantastic transferable skill to do anything. It's actually helped me with being an MC at a wedding as well, to great effect. So it's one of those life skills that, you know, it can be transferable to anything. It's just, and it goes beyond career as well, just like complex problem solving. And just talking more about other career and life skills, we've got flexibility and adaptability. Now, why is that important? Because things are changing so quickly, okay? Technology is changing so quickly, and as a result, companies are coming up with things that are forcing other companies to be more competitive, and therefore they need to adapt, okay, and be flexible. And they need to do this in a way that's cohesive amongst the organization. So this is why the collaboration and the teamwork is important, because you have to move as a competitor together, okay? You can't just be doing your own thing, okay? So when we're talking about flexibility and adaptability, we're also talking about those things like data analysis and visualization that help us move from industry to industry or role to role, okay? So you might want to use data visualization as that example that you learn in a finance company, and then take that across to a healthcare company because you know they're going to use it, okay? Another one that's important for life skills and career skills, some of those other soft skills like emotional intelligence, that is being self-aware, okay, of your behaviors, how you're affecting other people. And what goes with that is self-regulation, managing your emotions, which can be an issue in certain fast-paced environments, which a lot of tech environments can be. Well, actually, a lot of places are like that these days, but it's something that's valued quite highly by employers as well. It could be motivation, and that's your own motivation and motivation is a very wide term, which could mean, you know, motivate yourself to learn or to do better, but that is quite highly valued. Empathy fits in with the self-awareness and self-regulation, just being aware of what's going on around you, and, you know, the extent of your actions and the effect that the things you say have on other people, and the things you do have on other people as well. And it's also your social skills. Of course, that's transferable outside of the workplace into your social life, but you could actually use those skills from your social life and bring them into your work life. One example of that is I find that clients and colleagues react really well to having a bit of a sense of humor. I'm naturally a little I can be a bit cheeky sometimes with my sense of humor, but once I know people, they almost expect it. So that sort of helps the experience. You know, my friends are the same, you know. I do value that in other people, but I don't expect it. But it's just to lighten up and build rapport with people, okay? So all of these things increase your adaptability and employability, okay? That might seem a bit obvious, but I've just sort of run down a few of those transferable skills that I know personally have worked, and that could work for you. So, you know, depending on what your interests are, what you're good at, and what's in demand, as I said before, looking at that intersection between those three things, then go for it. Just prioritize that. Don't forget also that organizations, if you work with an organization currently, They can help you with cross-functional experience and job rotations to go from project to project. And just get those different skills which will help you build up your inventory over time so that you can apply them in the future, okay? A fourth area you can do to future-proof your skills are to seek professional development opportunities. These might seem a little bit more obvious. They can be employer-assisted. When I say employer-assisted, employer-funded. They can be self-funded, whether you're working with an organisation or not, or they can be government or scholarship-funded. Now, what I'm talking about are things like short workshops, 1 to 3 day workshops in a particular area you're interested in, online or self-paced courses, which are generally structured, which will lead to a certificate. These are generally instructor-led training, but there's also the self-paced e-learn modules. I used to dabble in a bit of e-learning myself, and what's good about that is that you can, press the stop button if you need to get a cup of tea, and not wait for the breaks that are usually in the training sessions. Formal education programs, professional certifications, for instance, PMP or Project Management Professional, degree programs, undergraduate, graduate and postgraduate degrees, okay? If you're planning on doing that as someone who's already working rather than being a full-time student, you might want to approach your employer about having that either fully or partly funded by them. But of course that will depend on the situation. That will depend on how they see that qualification as benefiting them as well as you, of course, as to whether they'll fund it. Leadership development programs, these are great for organisations where they're earmarking people for strategic and management competencies, or rather roles, but they're developing them in strategic and management competencies in order to do that well, because it is not easy to lead and direct large amounts of people, okay? It takes a lot of practice, but they quite often have good leadership programs, and quite often they're off-site programs, okay? So they're not necessarily in the organisation themselves. They'll go to a retreat for a week or a weekend or whatever. That's a good way of learning anything that needs to be learnt there. Technical training, programming, software apps. Again, this comes back to whether you want to delve into that more technical level of technical literacy. Compliance and regulatory training. There are some roles that absolutely depend on compliance training in order to do the role. So, for instance, in Australia, you've got the compliance and regulatory training for the new biosecurity officers authorised under the Biosecurity Act 2015. This, in effect, enables biosecurity officers to prevent the entry of pests that will harm the environment and agricultural industries, okay? So what I'm saying there is that some professions and some roles require you to do this compliance training. It's like when you start at a financial services organisation, you quite often have to do anti-money laundering training and, workplace behaviours, okay? So this is all sorts of good training. New hire onboarding training. This is fantastic. My last role, I was involved in doing onboarding for people working in a large financial organisation where they had to understand the basics of investing, pension funds or superannuation if you're in Australia, all sorts of financial instruments. So we took the call centre staff, contact centre staff through a 2-week intensive course, which covered everything from the company culture, the background, the systems, and then all the different subject areas they had to learn. Now they had instructor training from us, which was virtual. It was countrywide. They used to be face-to-face, but with the new way of working, the hybrid working, this actually enabled us to train more people in a shorter amount of time, and it was quite effective. But you also had all the modules that was a combination of e-learning that they did and then came back, and then we talked about the result there. And, you know, we always got glowing reviews from this training. So always look at that. It's generally mandatory for any role coming onto a large organization, but it's something that you should definitely jump on as soon as you can. Okay. Apprenticeships is another thing in terms of professional development opportunities. Now, this is not only traditional apprenticeships in manufacturing or trade or industry, where you have on-the-job experience coupled with mentoring and studying over about a 3 or 4 year period. But actually, the corporate world has started catching on to this as well. And I myself have been involved in a mentor at the company I worked with in the UK, doing the same thing. So we put them through a course where they had to complete 4 units, and they did a working assignment based on their real, you know, projects that they were working on. Okay. And then they had to submit that. So it's becoming more accepted in the corporate world and more sought after by employees. So please ask around for these sort of things, because I've got firsthand at how valuable they can be. Another professional development opportunity that's worth pursuing is self-learning. In terms of subscribing to publications, that could be something like Harvard Business Review. I find that they're really good talking about all sorts of aspects of future skills or digital skills, leadership, etc., etc. And they're really interesting articles as well. Following learning from social media content creators, you know, that's the thing now, isn't it? And this is why I'm here. But you can learn a lot from these people. You know, they have expertise in a certain area, so why not have the convenience of being able to log on to YouTube or TikTok or whatever you're on, whatever social media platform you're on, and learning from them. Use large language models, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Copilot, whatever you happen to use, as a way of researching. That's a whole different topic, but you know, some of you are not using it yet. So I highly recommend start, you know, questioning things. Talk to it like a human, okay? I won't go into much detail here, but it's a very valuable self-learning tool. Also, social media groups will be very beneficial as a self-learning tool. So joining a group in your particular industry, LinkedIn is a good one for that. But Facebook may have certain industry-specific groups as well. Okay, so it's just another means of learning from other people who post videos about a certain topic or have a comments thread on a certain topic as well. Okay, another way of future-proofing your skills are stretch assignments. So what do we mean by stretch assignments? Well, they're designed by employers to stretch your abilities and your potential and increase your potential, confidence and visibility, where you in effect volunteer for projects which are out of your comfort zone. Okay, so this might be managing a team, leading a project, learning a complex technical skill which you've always wanted to learn but never had the chance to do. Okay, so this is where employers can help you as well. So another way of future-proofing your skills, it's gaining experience in diverse fields, not just your own industry. So we're talking about cross-functional experience, increasing your versatility. So using my own example, as I said before, I started off working as a business analyst in the financial services industry and then moved out and worked in other industries like logistics and government, not-for-profit, etc., etc. Okay, it's good because when you use those transferable skills I talked about and go to another industry, you're not starting from scratch, but you're picking up a new subject matter each time. Okay, and that itself increases your adaptability, which is another skill of the future, as I mentioned before. Okay, so I got used to doing that just by design because I was contracting in different industries as a business analyst. Okay, so I was not only using my transferable skills in every assignment, but I was increasing my adaptability. And not only that, I was getting access to different cultures, learning to deal with different people in different industries. I learned more about how difficult it can be in certain industries and certain ways of acting, etc., etc. So it actually all helps you become what's called a T-shaped professional, okay? In effect, if I was to explain what that was, the T-shaped professional, if I'm looking at this part, the vertical part of the T, it is those skills that are built up by your core profession, and those skills on the horizontal part of the T are those skills that you gain by doing other things, other related things, could be in other industries, different subject matters, obtaining different behaviors, and so on and so forth, okay? So I think generally older people tend to be more T-shaped as they get older because they've just by design done more things. But if you're on the younger end of the career scale, it is possible to do that quite quickly as well by putting yourself out there and volunteering for things like stretch assignments, which I talked about before, okay? Now, another thing you can do to become future ready is build a professional network. Now, I can't state how important this is enough. You're actively networking with professionals, you're gaining their insights, you're looking at emerging trends, you're talking to people about what opportunities are out there. In fact, when I was doing contracting, I would catch up with ex-colleagues continuously, often enough to call it continuously, maybe once every 6 months. And just in casual conversation, work opportunities would come up because they've already worked with you. They know what you like. They know that you're potentially going to fit in. So they'll say, oh, actually, there's this project starting in April. And I've done that several times. So that's just purely networking. So I haven't had to rely on job posts and formal ways of getting a job to do that. And that's how business is created, through professional networking. So it's a very important skill to have because that's how you build businesses as well, okay? So apart from meeting up with colleagues, you can join meetups. You may be aware that there are meetup groups on anything, okay? Professional and non-professional. There's a meetup app. Now, this meetup will ask you to put in a keyword. I might want to put in product management, and it'll give you a bunch of or a list of meetups that you might be interested in, and then you can join accordingly. And the good thing about that is that because we live in a virtual or a hybrid world now, it's quite easy to attend meetups that are overseas. I recently attended one that was being run from Chicago because the time difference happened to work in my favor. So I can highly recommend that. Communities of practice, I mentioned before, it's sharing ideas with people in your industry, which is also networking as well, okay? Catching up with former current colleagues, I've mentioned, and one other thing I can highly recommend, I've mentioned it before, is getting a mentor. You're never too senior to have a mentor. In fact, CEOs have mentors, executives have mentors as well. Okay, so the last way you can future-proof those skills is by seeking volunteering or freelancing opportunities. So this may involve getting hands-on experience by working for not-for-profit and community organisations, which could be sitting on a board, or working with professional associations which are industry specific. It could be an accounting specific industry or business analyst industry or manufacturing industry, where you're similarly getting involved in planning events, pro bono services to increase your visibility, which will be valuable experience that, as I said, will lead to a job. You could do freelancing opportunities, driven by online freelancing platforms and marketplaces like Fiverr. A lot of people have heard this is where you do small jobs like graphic design, video editing, web design and writing. Upwork, this is mainly for software development and design, writing, virtual assistants, finance and consulting, where you basically create a profile showcase your skills and services and bid on projects. Another one is freelancer.com. This tends to be for larger projects across categories like software, writing, data entry and engineering, or TopTool, which is vetted freelance. So it's actually quite competitive. It's got a rigorous screening process, and that focuses on things like software development, design, project management. There's also startup companies you could do short-term projects for, in terms of helping them get off the ground with the product. It could be doing things like website development, testing, basically short-term projects. Could be content creation. Local businesses are another way you can help out by doing social media management, copywriting, graphic design, bookkeeping or website maintenance and things like that. So I'd love to hear what you're doing to overcome the fear of becoming obsolete. And if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. So till then, stay informed.